Thank you, Planet. And now we go to the recorded video presentation by Faizal Kurniawan on Indonesia. So, let's start.
Excellency, Chairman of the panel, it is our great pleasure to stand here before all of you, all legal philosophers around the world, to share our ideas regarding with integrating corporate social responsibility according to my country experience, Indonesia. I'm invited by Professor Tineke Lamboy from Utrecht University and Professor Beate Schavel from Oslo University Faculty of Law to join in this spectacular occasion. I will point out on an issue of the rationale the Indonesian lawmakers to put ESR regulation as legal obligation. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, Indonesia is a country which has many kinds of natural resources such as gold, oil, and timber. The number of exploration and exploitation in Indonesia of natural resources has huge impacts on environment degradation such as deforestation and oil spill. This triggered Indonesian lawmaker to establish regulation on the CSR. Indonesia is the only country in the world that makes CSR into a legal obligation. Yet CSR norms stipulated in Indonesia company law is known as ESR, Environment and Social Responsibility. Instead, natural resources were used as monopolistic commodity and subject to corruption, collusion, and nepotism. Natural resources are essentially potential in developing society welfare as well as in sustainable development. Law enforcement efforts were equally not optimal due to the fact that the exploiting parties giving significant contribution towards the country. For example, in 2008, mining sector contributed approximately 40 trillion rupiah out of taxes and non-taxes. It simultaneously caused environmental degradation and uneven economy level at some parts of Indonesia. Why it could be called unbalanced condition? Ladies and gentlemen, this happened because industry with high-tech basis requires workers from outside of the local societies, so that the local workers who, generally speaking, were low in education and skill would be set aside. Lack of responsibilities of the companies to take another aspects such as stakeholders into account, as well as show orientation on environmental aspect, caused a complete disharmony between company and the society. As time goes by, the society were more critical and started to be aware of companies' profit and the unawareness of the companies to repair the natural conditions that were used continuously. This thought was based on the Article 33, subsection 3 of the Indonesian Constitution, which stipulates land, water, and natural resources within shall be under the powers of the state and shall be used for the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people. Based on the philosophy, CSR that has been done voluntarily is changed into obligatory because Article 33. Indeed, Article 33, subsection 4 of the Indonesian Constitution explained that the national economy is administered on the basis of economic democracy established under the principle of togetherness, just efficiency, sustainability, environment forward-looking, self-sufficiency, and maintaining the balance of the progress and national economy unity. Philosophical view of the ESR is derived from moral value, stating that the company is actually dependent upon environment and the surrounding. As the implementation of the Article 33 of the Indonesian Constitution, Law Number 40, year 2007 on limited liability company, was enacted to focus more on CSR as a legal obligation. One of the new features which are adopted by Act Number 40, year 2007, is the company must take into account on environmental and social concerns. Furthermore, Article 1, subsection 3 of Indonesian company law defines environmental and social responsibility as a company's commitment to take a part in sustainable economic development in order to improve the quality of life and environment, which will be beneficial for the company itself, the local community, and society in general. Indonesia takes its position to put ESR into statutory obligation. I believe that the enactment of the law can drive and establish a mutual relationship between the company and the society. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, what is the notion of our lawmakers? When Act number 40, 2007 was published for the first time in August 2007, many reactions and criticisms were addressed to the Act. The Indonesian Chamber of Commerce delivered their opinion that the ESR should not be prescribed in a statutory law. It is merely a moral obligation rather than a legal obligation. If it is prescribed in a statutory law, it will be contrary to the voluntary principle and it becomes a burden for the company law. The chairman of the Committee of the Company Law of the House of Representatives has another opinion. He pointed out that the ESR should be prescribed in a statutory law since there are so many multinational corporations that operate in Indonesia do not responsible to the environmental damages that have made as the impact for their operation. If it is observed, the formulation of Article 74, subsection 3, the Indonesian Company Law states that companies who do not put the obligation into practice shall be liable to sanction in accordance with the provisions of legislative regulations. The violation to the ESR obligation by the company is subject to sanction as provided in the Act. Any clear provision concerning sanction for the company that does not implement any ESR obligation, however, cannot be found in this Act. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to show you there are many legal obstacles in implementing ESR provisions in Indonesia. Some of the investors had challenged before the Constitutional Court to propose a judicial review of Article 74 Indonesian Company Law. Based on the verdict of the Constitutional Court, the judge stressed that the nature of the establishment of CSR in Indonesia are the norm of social and environmental responsibility is become legal obligation and legal policy of the lawmaker to regulate and implement ESR with a sanction. CSR is known as voluntary works. However, in Indonesia, especially after enactment of the law, voluntarily has changed into mandatory. Indonesia has right to control its law and not depend on the other country's law, so that it needs new regulation for CSR. It has to differentiate between tax by the government and companies' fund for ESR. Tax is used for national development, meanwhile, ESR fund is used for society surrounds the company and also for environment in which the company is located. So that those two cannot be generalized. The government regulation of ESR as the legal obligation has more law certainty if it is compared to the voluntarily CSR. The norm of ESR can avoid various interpretation from the company. It is because ESR will have the power of controlling, binding, and push the company to do ESR. On the contrary, the regulation of voluntarily CSR is not powerful enough to force the company to do CSR. The changes of voluntary CSR to mandatory has a purpose for the company to have contribution in increasing society's prosperity. To sum up, I do believe that Indonesia can inspire other countries to put CSR into legal obligation since the impact is used for the betterment of life in the world. Before I end my speech, I will perform my deepest gratitude to Professor Tineke Lamboy and Professor Beata Schaffel for the all-kind cooperation. Thank you for all.